Hey folks, Malforian here and welcome back to the channel. Today a bit of a surprise announcement, a new dev diary on a Thursday, and it's all about wards and wardens and the vision for this event pack. This was the event pack that won the vote for the next event pack. There were three of them. I'll be honest, I kind of thought, and I think a lot of you probably the same, it was going to follow the same as the first event pack, which is Friends and Foes, which they're going to get into in a second as we go through this dev diary. And it was all just going to be events. Now, I know it got a lot of negativity, I think, about the fact it was just events, but that was kind of what it was sold as, in a way. But it actually looks, and we will see this in the dev diary to start with today, there's actually going to be a lot more in this event pack. It's almost like, it's not as good as a flavor pack, but I think it's a lot more than people expected from an event pack. Anyway, we're just going to get straight into it, and we'll see what they have to say. So, our first event pack, Friends of Foes, gave us something of a chance to experiment. Since then, we've had the chance to take a look at exactly what direction we want to start moving in with these packs, and build on what worked, which I think maybe they took the feedback from the first one, and kind of realized people were looking for a little bit more than what was included, especially for the price. One area that we hit upon was the diversity of content and how the player experienced the game. Events are the ink at which we daub on the fabric of the narrative. It's quite a nice way of saying that. But it's how, what, and why these events happen that govern their efficiency. Introducing new avenues for this content to reach the player is a great thing, provided it's done in an unobtrusive way, which I would agree with. I think that's why people have really enjoyed tours and tournaments. There's actually quite a lot of new systems and things in there, but they're pretty self-explanatory, and you can kind of just pick it up and play it and kind of understand what's going on. It sounds like that's what they're going to try do in the future as well, which is fantastic to hear. With that in mind, we're going to outline a few of the new features you'll find in Wards and Wardens, the event pack that you voted for last January, also it was this year, and the accompanying patch. So as always, there's going to be the DLC, which is probably going to be the most of the events and everything. Then there is obviously going to be the major patch that goes with it, with all the free stuff in there. And as we've seen before with the other updates, the free patch is sometimes almost as good as the actual paid content. So I think it works well this way. I think it means even if you don't buy the DLC, you are getting almost the most out of the game. There's obviously that little bit extra that the people who buy the DLC get. But I think you're not being left that far behind by not having the DLC. You get a lot of the new systems. Well, you get all the new systems. That's what they're always saying. They don't want to segregate systems out from the base game. That's why they're always getting added in there. And this is all going to come on August the 22nd. So it's not even that far away. Like, what is it, 6 weeks or so? I kind of expected this to be a little bit later just because we hadn't heard anything about it. But yeah, basically 6 weeks, we're going to have this out. Some of this content we'll talk about in the future, so don't expect anything too exhaustive here. But they're going to start off with some of the features. I think it'll be basically like the other expansions and things. We're probably going to get at least 1 or 2 features every week for the next 6 weeks. So if you enjoyed today's video, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. I cover all the dev diaries, and I'll keep you up to date with all the news as it comes out as we lead up to Wards of Wardens and then Legacy of Persia after that. So the first one we have here is captivating features. This is a bit of a double meaning as we're going to get into. Hostages aren't quite what you'd think of when you first hear the term. Rather than the forced holding of a person to ransom, hostageship in the Middle Ages was a political and legal status that was absolutely widespread. I don't believe I've ever heard of this. This is all news to me. I probably haven't just not heard the kind of term when I've read history about the Middle Ages and kind of put the two together, but they're going to get into it right now. Simply put, hostages were generally given, not taken. They were essentially transactional guarantees. In this case, we've zeroed in on the most common reason for hostages to be exchanged as a means to guarantee a peace treaty. In Wards and Wardens, hostages are a new type of relation somewhere between a prisoner and a foreign court guest. They reside in your court as a guest would, but cannot leave of their own accord, nor can they become knights. They are generally, though not always, children and have found themselves in a predicament due to their liege exchanging them as a way of guaranteeing non-hostility following a war or exchange via interaction during peacetime. Such an arrangement not only eases the mediation process, but also gives both sides a peace of mind. So yeah, they're pretty crazy. It's going to be interesting to see how this actually plays out in the game. I can imagine if it's not kind of set up correctly or balanced, it's going to be a bit weird, you know, to basically just take children off the AI to have peace deals with them. So it'll be interesting to see how this actually works once we get into it, but it's an interesting idea. We'll see how it plays out. So yeah, this is the UI for it. Very much like the UI for weddings and things like that. You can basically choose one of your children and basically give it to the other person and say, don't declare war on me, here's my child to look after, basically, as a kind of guarantee, is basically how it's going to work. Hostages are essentially a living non-aggression pact. Harming a hostage is a significant diplomatic incident, but it's also a way to deter your former enemies from getting any more bright ideas about exactly to whom the border county belongs. Any ruler that you have a hostage from will suffer significant debuffs and penalties should they try and attack you, and any wardens attacking home courts will suffer similar debuffs. So hostages present with the strongest form of deterrence possible. We'll see, I guess, how much the debuff is. I wonder if you could use this to your advantage, like use it to dissuade someone from attacking you, but then like using intrigue to kind of sneakily go around them to do something. It's going to be interesting to see, like I say, like how this actually works in the game, but I like it so far. It sounds kind of interesting. It's definitely not something I expected in an event pack, so yeah, we'll probably get more news about this in the future. And then hostages themselves are kept in line via something else new and shiny. In perpetuity, we have two types of hooks in the game already, strong and weak. The latter are the type of hooks you'll get if you want to, for example, manipulate a person in a certain way. They are single use and cannot be refused at cost. Strong hooks, on the other hand, can be used multiple times in a range of scenarios, but are also much rarer. If you've played the game, you know that getting those strong hooks is pretty difficult. Getting the weak hooks is relatively easy. Perpetual hooks is the new system, is a new hook, which wardens can get on hostages who they treat well and represent something of a middle ground. They are refusable, like weak hooks, but also permanent, like strong hooks. At the moment, hostages, and those who have previously been hostages, are the only characters you'd expect to see with perpetual hooks, but just as memories were built with expansion in mind in Friends and Foes, so too should you not be surprised if this turns up in future content. And again, I do like this. I like the fact that they're building systems now in a way that they can use in the future if they want to. I think that was one of the problems, and it's not like a hot take really. That was the problem with CK2, is it was all systems individually designed, then they were basically forgotten about when the next shiny thing came along. Whereas it does look like they are keeping to this belief of, in CK3, we're going to build systems, we're going to do them better than CK2, and we're also going to make them so we can reuse them in later content. If you watch my video about trade and how I think it would work, I think they're thinking the similar way for like how the travel system works and how they could use that for trade in the future. That's my weird theory, but we'll see if that one plays out. But again, as you can see here, they are thinking, you know, we will build this in a way for this content, but in the future we could use it for something else. And it's awesome to see them thinking like that in the future. And then what an odd fellow. One of the spots that we've been somewhat hamstrung by in CK3 is immediating the existence of characters that don't quite fit the mold, as it were. People that are a little bit strange. And we're going to get onto eccentric traits. So as you can see, this trait is really interesting. -2 diplomacy, +2 learning, that's nothing too weird. Stress gain +50, but also stress loss +50. Kind of equals each other out in a way, but again, they're eccentric. It's a little bit weird. And they've got some other bonuses as well. The monthly lifestyle experience +20% is pretty good. In CK2, you'd have insane and possessed characters that did all kinds of wacky things. Immortal horse chancellors. I mean, who here misses Glitterhoof? I think all of us. CK3 takes a more grounded approach with how traits are represented. Lunatic, for example, was used increasingly loosely in CK2, ending up as an umbrella for basically everything. But in CK3, it sticks much more rigidly to the latter. And I think they're saying here is they haven't got anything that's like less than that. This is where the eccentric trait comes in, as a trait dedicated to the slightly odd. This allows us to group some of the more unusual situations you'd find yourself under this new personality trait, giving them both more reason to happen for a certain character, but critically, also barring these characters who wouldn't engage in such strange distractions from doing so. We'll talk about more of that in the coming weeks. So yeah, one of the future dev diaries is going to be about this trait basically, and I guess how it's going to interact with the systems we've got. I do like this. We've got Lunatic, but it'd be interesting to have one that's a little bit more grounded, but then see how that actually affects things, especially if it affects like characters. Like, I wonder if you had a truce with someone, they're more likely maybe to break the truce with you if they have eccentrics. They're just a little bit weird. And they're just like, I've changed my mind, I'm going to do this. So yeah, we'll see what they decide in the future. And then a midwife crisis. As you might expect with how hostages skew towards much more young, especially as we've seen already, a fair percentage of what we've been working on has been filling out the experience of non-adults' existence in CK3, which is obviously Wards and Wardens, is basically what it's themed on. We've come some way in this regard since release, with Friends and Foes adding a swathe of new events and a revamp of childhood personality traits, as well as, of course, the Regency mechanic giving a whole new level of intrigue to a child navigating the dangerous medieval world. And I think it worked quite well for that. Before these, playing as a child was pretty boring, and with these additions already, it is a little bit more interesting, especially, as they say, with the Regencies, and then obviously this is all focused on children and things, so again, we'll get a bunch more events and things like that. In Wards and Wardens, we've added to this another fresh layer of childhood content. It is no small part focused on hostages and their experiences, but also the addition of a wet nurse court position. Wet nurses held an interesting status amongst medieval courts, and adding this court position adds another layer to the trials and tribulations of raising a child. So yeah, you get a wet nurse here. Monthly court grantor change +10 to +20 based on their aptitude. Not too bad. Reduces chances of children from contacting illnesses, which is great. Possibility for child development events, so get some more events if you have one of these. The contracting illnesses, when we do get that, Black Death themed DLC, this is obviously going to be quite useful. So yeah, nice, we get another court position, so again, feeding into the Royal Court DLC, another position added into there. It's fantastic to see them kind of synergizing some of this stuff together. Mature students, we've been delighted to read how much you've all been enjoying the new and old activities in CK3 since the release of Tours and Tournaments. I agree fully with this. I'm sure many of you do. I think the redo of activities is almost the best thing about Tours and Tournaments. I know it's kind of the main focus, but I just think there's so many stories and things like that happen now. It's just been fantastic as a DLC. With that in mind, we've attempted to utilize it to approach something that's always been static in Crusader Kings, education as an adult. So you're actually going to be able to learn things as an adult. I guess this is the kind of Wardens side of Wards and Wardens. Everything else before has kind of been Wards side. So here we have it, yeah, host a university visit. So basically, if you have a university, you can host, like a grouping, like a bunch of people, I guess, will be invited, very much like a grand tournament, but obviously university themed. And anticipated rewards will be upgrade your education trait, get skill points, lifestyle experience, lifestyle traits. You may gain book artifacts, you may recruit a highly skilled character. 190 gold, this obviously scales, as we've seen previously with how things were changed. But yeah, now another reason to own a university, because you can hold these, and I imagine you're going to get some cool events, you're going to get some different things. Maybe you could have some, some kind of affairs and things like that happening as well, but I'd imagine a lot of people are going to come in to try and learn things from your university, and there's going to be events themed around that. Previously, once you had come of age, an education type and rank was assigned to you, and that's what it was. You, age 16, were as educated as you'd ever become, so you'd be like a level 3 marshal, level 5 stewardship, Midas touched, and things like that. Now, whilst properly reflecting the rate at which humans grow as people as they age is something that's impossible to task for a game, which, yeah, is probably true, the current system was a little bit too rigid for our liking. As such, the adult education activity now gives players a chance to tickle their brains at a centre of learning in hope that they can actually upgrade their education trait to a higher level. But what of those who enter adulthood with the finest education life has to offer? What steps can those people take to better themselves in adulthood? Worry not, we have a plan for that, but it will have to wait. So this is where we're going to find out about that in the future dev diary. And as you can see at the bottom here, next week is going to be adult education activity in CK3 from top to bottom. So that is basically going to answer this question as to what happens if you are Midas touched and you learn something extra. Is there a tier 6? I imagine not. I imagine it's going to be some kind of other bonus. Maybe you're just going to be like renowned around the world for your stewardship or something, and you'll get some other kind of bonuses. It's going to be super interesting to see anyway. But yeah, it kind of sounds like not exactly that they're bringing the XP system that came with Tours and Tournaments into, like the martial traits and the learning and things like that. But it sounds like you can basically just knock it up one level. So if you're a level 3 marshal, you can become level 4 marshal by doing a university visit or something like that. Or if you're level 1, you're a terrible learning character, you can become a level 2 learning character and get those extra bonuses for being that one tier higher. This is actually a fantastic change as well. I would never even have thought about this, which is weird. It seems so obvious now, having seen it kind of spelled out for us. But yeah, this is awesome. I really like this change. It's going to be interesting to see next week exactly how it works. I imagine it's controlled in some way, because otherwise, if you were very young, you could rank up your tiers a lot, I would imagine. But we'll see next week. It's all going to be spelled out there. And that's it. So yeah, a bit of a surprise dev diary. A lot of interesting information in there. These are the systems, or like the main systems of Wards and Wardens. And then obviously there's just going to be a bunch of events that they'll probably go through in one of the further weeks. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. Like, a lot of this is a surprise to me. I wasn't expecting like these actual system changes or just additions to previous systems to link into this content. So far, I'm loving what I'm seeing. As I say, let me know in the comments down below. Do you like what you see? What kind of things would you like for them to do with these systems? How do you think the adult education is going to work? That's going to be super interesting. But yeah, we'll leave it there for today. Hit the like button if you've enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new here. I cover Crusader Kings. I do narrative campaigns. I do news, dev diaries, and I cover other historical games as well on the channel. But we'll leave it there for today, and I'll see you in the next one.